Have you ever wanted to use the ultimate duo Kazuha and Beidou, but never knew what team comp to put him in? Allow me to introduce to you the most broken Kazuha and Beidou team comp. Except it doesn't work because of one interaction, Raiden Shogun and Beidou. I'm pretty sure that most people already know about this interaction, but I'm just going to clarify for those who don't. When Raiden uses her elemental burst, it doesn't proc Beidou's elemental burst. And it's just, why Mihoyo? Why? However, I'll still be discussing this literally broken team comp today because I hope that one day Mihoyo changes their minds and fixes this interaction. Also, because this team has the most potential synergy that I've seen yet, along with the fact that Kazuha and Beidou are some of my favorite units in this game. So, let me showcase the optimization and rotations of this ruined team. First, let's break down each character's abilities and how they theoretically synergize well together. Raiden Shogun's skill can increase the damage significantly in all deployable elemental bursts. Since all units burst within this team comp do multiple instances of damage over time, it maximizes the bonus damage each character's burst gets from Raiden's elemental skill buff. Raiden Shogun's skill is also deployable, and since it doesn't snapshot, all buffs applied to Raiden throughout the entire rotation can increase the coordinated skill damage. Raiden Shogun's burst refunds all energy of the team comp, therefore removing downtime to recharge elemental bursts, similar to the Morgana team comp that consists of Venti to refund energy. Energy requirements are dependent, however, on the amount of enemies present and the amount of energy recharge each unit has. However, the team's energy recharge shouldn't be an issue when Raiden Shogun is built with enough ER, besides maybe Xingqiu, depending on if he's C6 or not. Xingqiu can apply constant Hydra with his elemental burst, dealing a significant amount of damage. Also, his high energy cost burst benefits Raiden's resolve stacks. Same thing with Beidou. She has a high amount of damage loaded within her elemental burst, and also has a high energy cost burst for Raiden's resolve stacks. Kazuha can swirl both Hydra and Electro within this team comp, providing Electro and Hydra damage bonus with his passive talent, while straining the resistance of enemies with the VV set. And let's not forget the elemental resonance, High Voltage, allows for less energy recharge stats to be required for a continuous rotation of elemental skills and bursts, therefore allowing to invest more stats into damage. More synergy also is added when taking into account constellations. Constellation 2 on Xingqiu allows for his elemental burst to be active throughout the entire duration of Raiden's burst, along with Beidou's and Kazuha's. Also, it decreases the Hydra resistance of the enemies during his elemental burst, allowing for Kazuha to do a little bit more damage on his elemental burst and skill when infused with Hydra. Constellation 6 on Beidou decreases the electro resistance of enemies during her burst, allowing for Raiden to do more damage during her burst and skill. Constellation 2 on Kazuha further increases the damage of the continuous electro charge reactions occurring, while giving an even greater damage bonus to all party members during his elemental burst. Constellation 4 on Raiden allows for a stronger second rotation by increasing the attack of the rest of the party members, and the rest of the constellations are just more damage for the individual units. Moving on to builds. First, Raiden Shogun. I run an energy recharge weapon, such as the free-to-play catch, to provide the team with enough energy to have consistent elemental burst uptime. The energy recharge threshold depends on if you're up against single or multiple targets, but I would generally cover both because Raiden Shogun loses less damage for building energy recharge over attack percentage, due to her passive talent, running 4-piece Emblem of Seraph Fate, and if you have it, her best in slot weapon, Engulfing Lightning. So around 250 to 300% energy recharge, so that you can build less energy recharge on your other units. The recommended artifact set would be 4-piece Emblem of Seraph Fate. For Kazuha, a full elemental mastery build is what I would run in Kazuha to provide the team with more elemental damage bonus while having energy recharge on the substats of his artifacts. My personal preference for his weapon, Iron Sting, nice free-to-play option that can be refined and provides extra damage with a good amount of EM. If there isn't enough energy recharge on the substats, go with an energy recharge weapon or Sand. The 4-piece VV set is my recommended artifact set for him. It's just too good for any animal support unit and works best on Kazuha with a full EM build. For Xingqiu, any sword with attack percentage or crit can be put on Xingqiu to replace Sacrificial Sword, Running Sword, or any energy recharge sword to increase its damage, due to Raiden Shogun providing enough energy recharge that Xingqiu has a nice energy recharge substats on his artifacts, or at C6. My personal preference is Lion's Roar, since Electro is applied constantly within Electro Charge team comps such as this one, therefore increasing his damage on his elemental skill and bursts. A notable option is the new Inazuma craftable weapon for lack of energy recharge, since Xingqiu is the unit that requires the most energy within the team comp due to an 80 energy cost burst. But since there's Raiden Shogun, he doesn't need as much. For artifact sets, I would recommend 2-piece Hydro and 2-piece Noblesse, 4-piece Thunder Soother, or 4-piece Emblem of Seraph Fate. I personally run 2-piece Heart of Death and 2-piece Noblesse so that my other units can run the other sets. Also, it's still optimal to run. For Beidou, same thing with Beidou in terms of weapons. Any claymore with attack percentage or crit stats can be put on Beidou to replace any energy recharged claymore. For me, I was fortunate enough to get the Wolf's Greystone, but most of the claymores are pretty good as well. 4-piece Thunder Soother, 2-piece Thundering Fury, and 2-piece Noblesse, or 4-piece Emblem of Seraph Fate would be good artifact sets to run. 4-piece Thunder Soother is my personal favorite in comparison to the 4-piece Emblem of Seraph Fate, due to Beidou not requiring a lot of energy recharge due to Raiden Shogun. Also similar to why I put Lion's Roar on Xingqiu, damage from Beidou's skill and burst can both be increased from Thunder Soother's passive, as Electro is constantly applied. Last thing for builds is talent priority, which for all units it will be to level your burst, then skill within this team comp. Kazuha's normal attacks can be upgraded as well for extra damage. Anyways, now that builds are out of the way, let's move on to putting it all together with actual combat and rotations. How exactly do you utilize all these team synergies? Well, here's the bread and butter of my favorite combo. Now, if you don't get what just happened, let me explain step by step. First, you start off with Raiden's skill, to buff all the elemental bursts occurring throughout the entire rotation and provide constant off-field damage. This then sets up for Kazuha's tap skill, to Swirl Electro, buffing the damage of Raiden's off-field ability and reducing the enemy's electro resistance. Note that my Kazuha is C1, so the second time he uses his elemental skill, it will be off cooldown. I have not tested C0 Kazuha, so there might be a delay. Use Xingqiu's skill and follow it with an immediate burst. Then switch to Beidou, auto attack once to apply Electro with Raiden's skill. If the auto attack misses, as long as Xingqiu's rain swords hits the enemy, it will still activate Raiden's skill. This is so that Beidou's skill gains increased damage from Thunder Soother, otherwise considered optional if unequipped. Ideally, a perfect parry of course, followed by an immediate burst. Switch back to Kazuha to use his tap skill again, auto attack once, then use his elemental burst. The auto attack procs Xingqiu's rain swords, and along with Kazuha's infused Hydro skill, allows for Hydro and Electro to be present when Kazuha uses his elemental burst. This allows for Kazuha to double swirl Electro and Hydro. Or maybe it's Xingqiu's rain sword from his skill, but regardless, the most consistent method I found. And surprisingly, if you notice here, Kazuha is still able to gain energy particles with that one auto attack weaved in between his elemental skill and burst. Put forth an extra auto attack right after the burst to apply Electro to the enemy from Beidou's burst or Raiden's skill, so that Kazuha can swirl Electro, therefore resetting the Electro resistance shred on the enemy for Raiden's elemental burst. Raiden Shogun then takes center stage and uses her elemental burst, simply auto attacking to activate Xingqiu and theoretically Beidou's elemental bursts. All the team's elemental bursts last for most, if not all, the duration of Raiden Shogun's burst. Repeat the rotation, but permanently swap the order of Kazuha and Raiden's skill at the beginning to have Kazuha swirl both Hydro and Electro. This is considered optional though, if you don't have C2 Xingqiu, Lion's Roar, or Thunder Soother equipped on Xingqiu. You can alter bits and pieces of this rotation here and there, but let me showcase an alternate version which utilizes Xingqiu's Constellation 4, Lion's Roar, and Thunder Soother if equipped. The only reason why I don't like this rotation as much is due to the extra time of swapping units and catching particles, despite being more of an optimal rotation. And it's not just as buttery smooth as the first one. If you're not one to care about optimization and suffering through order and strict timing, introducing the Unga Bunga rotation, spam skills and then burst. The order would be Kazuha, Xingqiu, Beidou, then Raiden, with Raiden's skill being the first in the order. Simple, but actually very effective as it utilizes the grouping potential for the team comp's AoE capabilities, as you can use Kazuha's hold skill. Important things to note: when an enemy unit is electrically charged, they will have both the Hydro and Electro status on them. Electro is generally swirled over Hydro when you use an animal skill with a weak elemental gauge, such as Kazuha's tap skill. However, Hydro is infused due to the priority order of infusion for animal abilities, being Pyro, Hydro, Electro, and then finally Cryo. Therefore, in order to swirl Hydro in an electro-charged team comp, such as this one, you have to make sure that only the Hydro status is applied to the enemy, or if you're able to apply an Nemo elemental gauge greater than the Electro aura, to double swirl both Hydro and Electro. Such things that can do that is Kazuha's hold skill and Kazuha's initial slash for his elemental burst. Also, Kazuha can only proc the VV set when he is on field and the active character. If you want to learn more about specifics on elemental gauge, auras, and double swirls, or just interested in optimization and theory crafting, I suggest you check out Kaching Main's website. A link will be in the description down below. And that's all the potential optimizations you need to know. Simple, right? This took me a lot of trial and error to get this rotation to absolute perfection, and I don't bother to calculate exact numbers in DPS since I'm too lazy to do so. I just like discovering the potential of characters that I've built. So, if anyone wants to calculate the theoretical DPS of this team comp, including if Beidou's burst were to be active alongside with Raiden's burst, be my guest. And even though this comp has arguably some of the most difficult optimizations yet, it is by far, for me, one of the most satisfying rotations to pull off. To build up and stack all those buffs and elements of burst, when you hit Raiden's burst, the team comp within those 7 seconds feels unstoppable, I tell you. You know what? Team comps are given a name, so I'll give this one right now. I know this is a variation on Fireworks team comps, but the visual aspect of Kazuha's elements of burst makes me just want to call this team comp Thunderstorm. Let me know what you guys think, because I don't know. Moving on to the pros and cons. This team comp has no healer, unless we consider Xingqiu a healer. Therefore, not usable in the current floor 11 of Spiral Abyss with the corrosion debuff. Just stick with the OP healing meta. However, the iframes from elemental burst, damage reduction, dodging, and parrying capabilities are enough to run this team comp against anything else. Just make sure you're not getting hit without the damage reduction applied. This team comp in comparison to other team comps requires a lot more investment amongst all units. For example, Zhongli is the only unit that needs to be invested for a national team comp in order to receive the most damage output, while this team comp requires investments in each unit to increase the overall damage output to match. However, I believe this team comp has a higher damage ceiling at higher investment because each unit is dealing highest amounts of damage while buffing each other simultaneously with all field abilities. Unfortunately, the higher investment aspect also applies to constellations as well, so best pay up. Jokes aside, I don't recommend spending money on broken team comps like this one, but spend how you please. The comp is nice for both single target and AoE environments depending on the rotations used. Optimizing single target DPS requires a strict rotation order with strict timing to maximize the damage output of each unit, for example keeping in mind Kazuha's uptime on his passive and Beidou's perfect parry. However, this can be ignored like shown in the Unga Bunga rotation for better grouping capabilities and easier gameplay. In short, the optimal rotation for single targets or already grouped enemies, and the Unga Bunga rotation for multiple targets that are spaced out, which you will see a lot in the Spiral Abyss. Finally, for the biggest problem with this team comp, Beidou's elemental burst will not proc along with Raiden's elemental burst, making this team comp not as optimal as it should be. Even though the team comp actually works without it, it is a crucial aspect that can't be overlooked. If you want an alternative team that actually works, I got you covered. If we would want to keep Kazuha and Beidou within an electro-charged team, we would have to replace Raiden Shogun. Here are some Raiden Shogun replacements. Tartaglia can be an alternative, providing constant hydro application for electro-charge reactions. If the double damage reduction isn't enough, or you just want a healer to use this team comp on the current floor 11 with corrosion debuff, Kokomi can be an alternative like Tartaglia, along with Barbara. Since I don't have these two units, it's up to you to optimize these rotations for these units if you choose to do so. Just keep in mind the double elemental damage buff and elemental resistance shred that Kazuha can provide with double swirl. Kachin can be utilized within rotations very similar to this original team comp, and she can utilize Lion's Roar like Xingqiu, along with Thunder Soother. Razor as an alternative surprisingly works, despite being physically damage oriented. This team comp utilizes Razor C4 and C6 pretty efficiently, allowing for hybrid and electro builds, such as Thunder Soother on Razor? Along with the quick swap potential that C6 Razor has, that might just be an entire video on its own for team comps. Maybe someday when I get C6. All these alternatives can fulfill the role of being on-field DPS. Just keep in mind rotation timings for cooldowns, whether it be passives or abilities. Unfortunately, the downsides of swapping out Raiden is that you need to build more energy recharge on each of our units if we want to keep elemental bursts off cooldown. So if we prefer a Raiden electrocharge composition, we would have to replace Beidou. For Beidou replacements, Fischl as an alternative works as an off-field damage dealer, in which you lose damage reduction and burst damage bonus from Raiden's skill, as Fischl's burst only comes out within a single instant. Kujo-Sara is another alternative that can buff Raiden's on-field damage, but has the same problems as Fischl when replacing Beidou. And finally, there is the all 4-star Electrocharge Fireworks team comp that replaces Raiden and Kazuha for Fischl and Chukos. To wrap this up again, I hope that MiHoYo allows for Raiden and Beidou's elemental bursts to work together, because this is by far my favorite potential team comp yet. It has a nice mixture of technicality and brain dead gameplay that I truly enjoy. I understand that there's much controversy over the topic on if the Raiden and Beidou interaction should work or not. However, I feel like the game should be balanced to where each unit is able to function properly within each and every team comp, no matter it being considered optimal or non-optimal, meta or non-meta, so that players are able to use their favorite units within any team. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe for notifications, since you never know when I might upload again, because I don't know when I will either. If you have any suggestions for future videos, because we all know how limited GenshinImpact content can be, let me know. Enjoy the rest of your night.